we laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the House. We set the foundation. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people.
The vice president is now heading home after talks this weekend, and he said that the Iranians have agreed to let international nuclear inspectors back into their country. Critically, though, Iran's foreign minister is pushing back on that claim. For its part, the United States says that it's willing to unfreeze Iran's assets on the condition that they're used to purchase American agricultural products. But that progress was almost delayed this weekend after Iran's military said it was once again closing the Strait of Hormuz in response to continued Israeli attacks on Lebanon. Now, that prompted President Trump to seemingly threaten Iran's negotiators themselves. The president telling Fox News his message to Iran was, quote, "You close it and you won't have a country. You won't even make it back to your effing country." And that led Iranian state media to say that their negotiators were actually leaving the talks, a claim that Vice President Vance today refuted.
After that initial meeting, there was this, sort of social media firestorm where everybody said the Iranians are going to leave, and then we proceeded to talk to them for like the next 9 hours. So I would just encourage the media, mistrust a little bit what you see coming out of Iranian social media. They can be confusing negotiators, but we feel like we're making progress.
How is the administration really feeling about the state of these negotiations now that Vice President Vance is on his way back?
I think they're feeling cautiously optimistic, the same way that you heard from the vice president there, but they're not going to get ahead of themselves. They've seen this before, and they've gone down a path in which they said that these deals were going to happen any second, that everybody was acting in good faith, only to have the rug pulled out from under them. Now, I will note President Trump is currently signing an executive order on quantum technology and mentioned that the Strait of Hormuz is completely open, something that we know, at least from the people on the ground there, there's a lot of confusion about the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, it was technically supposed to be open, but as you noted, Iran saying that they were closing it back up has led to a lot of confusion on the actual involvement on what is happening with the Strait of Hormuz. Now, when it comes to the vice president, he spent a lot of time talking about these inspectors, how he was walking out of this meeting and Iran was going to let these inspectors, these UN inspectors, onto the ground in Iran, but we never really got any of the specifics there. What sites were they going to be allowed to visit? What kind of access were they going to be given? And we should note that visiting these sites, these UN inspectors visiting, was part of the Obama deal as well, the deal that President Trump ripped up. Now, here is one of the things that Vice President J.D. Vance said about these inspectors coming in and really these negotiations overall, casting somewhat of doubt over whether or not this was going to be a done deal. Take a listen.
Whether good faith or bad faith, you can't trust anybody's words. You have to trust what they actually do. Letting in the inspectors is a big deal, but again, we're going to see what they actually let the inspectors do once they're in the country. That's going to continually be a part of our negotiation. So my point is not that I trust or distrust anybody. My point is that I trust actions. And what the president has asked us to do is verify what they're doing, focus less on what they're saying.
I think that's an interesting concept there. He also said that he was confused at times about the way that the Iranians negotiated and just kind of how they addressed the situation, both with him and publicly through Iranian state media. That's why you heard him there kind of asking people not to listen to them, since they have their own political beliefs that they have to get out there and policies that they have to get out there. The other thing to bring up here is one of the things that Vance described, which, as you noted, was this idea of unfreezing the funds. He says this is part of a concept dreamed up by Jared Kushner, where the funds then go back into America to buy food and equipment for the Iranians, so somewhat of a humanitarian effort. But there's still going to be a lot of skeptics here, because even as the vice president is saying, watching the actions is going to be key here, not just listening to what the Iranians are saying they're going to do.
66% say that of the American public say that they want this conflict over. Another 78% says that right now the United States should end the conflict right now. 69% say that the conflict with Iran is not worth it. So if you're J.D. Vance and you're trying to spin the sanctions relief and all of this stuff as a win for the American people, sure, does that tell you that he's coming from a strong position, or he's trying to cover himself?
If you're J.D. Vance, you try to convince the American people that Donald Trump didn't start this war in the first place. Any positivity about this conflict ending, of course, has to be brought back to the fact that Donald Trump started it. The oil prices went up because of Donald Trump. American bases attacked, destroyed because of Donald Trump. Our allies moving away from us because of Donald Trump. And now we have an agreement that if it were Barack Obama that signed this agreement, the entire Republican Party would be unified in opposition to it, saying, rightfully so, that it is giving billions of dollars away to one of our principal enemies. It is a disgrace, and it makes Donald Trump look like the weak president that he is.
Scott, speaking of what the Republicans would be saying if Obama had signed this deal, the oil sanctions relief, which is effective immediately, it's according to this report, these new market rate transactions could translate to roughly $14 million in additional daily profits, or about $840 million to the Iranian regime over a 60-day window. So they're getting cash immediately.
Yeah, and apparently the purpose of that is for them to buy agriculture products to provide humanitarian relief. That has to be stayed on top of. I will say one of the main purchasers of the sanctioned oil before all this was China, and they were buying it at a huge discount. So now China's going to have to buy market rate oil, so this won't be good for the Chinese.
It would be great for the Iranians, though. I mean, I think that what
it'd be great for the Iranian people
if
they're able to feed the people.
Iran gets to charge now $10 a barrel more than they were charging before. So whoever's paying for it, it could be China, it could be anywhere else in the world, they're getting the proceeds. And I mean, I have real questions about this idea that they're supposed to be buying American products. Who's enforcing that? They just get the money.
I do too. I want, if they're getting money, I want that money to be spent on feeding the Iranian people. Now, what they do with it, that has to be monitored. So I agree with you on that point. You said Donald Trump started this. You seem to have some amnesia about the fact that Iran has been at war with the United States for 47 years. And as the president said, he's finally the one that's dealing with it. They've killed thousands of Americans. They've funded terror proxies that have destabilized the region. They've been after us, chanting death to America for 5 decades. And you think that we just decided to pick on Iran for no reason this spring? This was long overdue. And if at the end of it, they don't have nuclear weapons, and at the end of it, we do have a stable Middle East, and at the end of it, we do have a situation where they're not funding terror proxies, terrorizing our friends and allies over there. That'll be a good thing.
How do we know that they don't have nuclear weapons?
We're putting inspectors in. Do you hear the announcement today?
Well, do you hear what Donald Trump just said? That the U.S. controls the Strait of Hormuz, that Iran is destroyed as a country. So then why are we negotiating with Iran? If the situation is so bad for Iran, why do we have the vice president going to Switzerland to negotiate some sort of end to this conflict?
So the alternative is we would just keep bombing a country in perpetuity, or is the alternative you bomb, you get them to the table, and then you get an outcome? The outcome is no nuclear weapons, and we try to get the region stable with our allied partners over there.
I think it would be helpful to reframe this a little bit. Somebody convinced the president that there was a once-in-a-generation opportunity for regime change in Iran. It's true, the opportunity existed, but the odds were much lower than whoever told the president. And that, by the way, that person should be fired. So it turns out it was wrong. There wasn't a really good opportunity for regime change. Now, we got to get out of this. We'd already ruined their nuclear program. Their ambitions, no, they remain, but their program was ruined, and we know where it is, and we can bomb it again. So we went to war for regime change, and it failed. We're a superpower. What we need to worry about is our credibility as a superpower. That's what we should be worried about. We're losing it. So I think we get out of this, we find a way to get out of this, save face, and then remind the Iranians that we're still powerful and we're still in the bloc, and we'll deal with them. That's a regime that should fall. This is not the right time for it. We shouldn't have gone to war over it.
All right, we do have to leave it there.